What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So we got a lot of big news today, and we actually have a lot going on this week as well. So let's begin with what is happening today first. If you have any questions on any of this stuff, you can always ask your questions down in the comment section below. And always do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoy these daily uploads. Now, here's what's going on. First, the Kremlin says that Russia will stop attacking Ukraine if certain terms are met, and I will address those in just a minute. We know Ukraine is calling the evacuation routes through Belarus and Russia unacceptable. We know JP Morgan is worrying that surging prices will lead to stagflation and risk a recession. We know Germany now opposes cutting Russian oil because it would actually really hurt their economy. We know China is now warning the United States against forming a Pacific NATO alliance and backing Taiwan. And Capitol Police yesterday issued an emergency declaration for the convoy of truckers who are circling Washington, D.C. as a protest. So I will address all those things in today's video. Like I said, if you have any questions, you can always ask your questions down in the comment section below. But let's get into it. Let's first touch on stimulus for a moment, because we did hear from Senator Joe Manchin just yesterday morning, and he stated that stimulus talks are not happening right now. He made it very clear that the Build Back Better Act is very low on his priorities list, but here's what we do know. What we are hearing right now is the Senate doesn't have it high on their list either. It's not just Senator Joe Manchin, it's the Senate in general. Now, what I can tell you is the goal moving forward is simple. It's just prevent any further suffering to the American people. And this will actually be done in two ways. One is an immediate form of relief. The second one is more of a long-term goal that lawmakers have had in place for years. The first thing is they want to limit inflation. Well, how do they do that? Well, that's the tricky part. The second thing is reduce the national deficit. That's the easy part. But it's difficult because some want to do it, some don't. And the reason why I say it's easy is because it's very simple. In order to reduce a deficit or get out of debt, right, you spend more or you spend less than what you make so you can pay off your debt. Very simple. But the United States makes it extremely difficult. Now, with that said, all eyes are on student debt forgiveness. And I want to address why. Because if student debt gets forgiven through an executive order, then there will be an even bigger push for Social Security reform. And if both student debt forgiveness happens and Social Security reform happens, there will likely be an even bigger push for the child tax credit payments to either be restarted or rework the bill. Currently, those are the biggest forms of stimulus that we are currently seeing, really out of the federal government. And everything else regarding stimulus checks and tax credits, all that's coming from the states directly. Okay? So keep that in mind. That right now, if we see student debt forgiven up to $10,000 or $50,000, in many cases, that's going to provide about $460 per month bonus or stimulus or whatever you want to call it. Okay? So pretty big incentive. And keep this in mind. Okay? Last year, Congress already passed the tax portion of the student loan forgiveness. Okay, because normally when you get a loan forgiven, what happens is that forgiven amount is actually stuck right onto your income. Okay, you got counted as income, so you got to pay taxes on that. So that's where Congress already passed that. They did that last year, and I believe the American Rescue Plan. And so that's already in place. The next thing is you got to forgive the loans. And so that's the kind of tricky part. So we're going to see what happens there. But again, we should know more within the coming weeks as to what we see there. Because according to the White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain, we should have an answer on this by the end of this month. Okay? By the end of this month. Now, really, what they're hoping is to have answers by May 1st before any payments start. But the reports are by the end of this month. That's what they want to see. So again, as we get any more information there, I promise I will fill you in on those updates as soon as we get them. Now, What are Russia's demands for ending this war? Some probably think they're really extravagant. Some would say that these are very simple. Ukraine should easily be able to do these. But let's address these and you can come up with your own conclusion at the end. The first thing, Ukraine must halt all their military activity. Okay, first thing, in order for Russia to end the war, Ukraine must just halt their military activity. You can probably see why this would be an issue. The next thing, they would need to change their constitution to include neutrality, which would mean they can't join the EU or NATO. The third thing, they must recognize Crimea as Russian territory. And then the last thing, they need to recognize independence of the separatist regions of Donetsk and Lugansk. Those are probably not pronounced right, but that's as close as I can come. Now, even though these would end the war, what many experts are saying is that this would also make Ukraine weaker. And they would make them weaker temporarily, but also in the long term as well. And if Ukraine is weaker moving forward, what says that Russia doesn't just not live by this agreement, or they just come back in and try to take more of Ukraine, right? So that's the issue there. So many experts are saying this might not be the best move, is to do what Russia is asking. Now, at the same time, Russia is providing a ceasefire to Ukrainian civilians who would like to leave. However, there's an issue here. Ukraine says that the evacuation routes are unacceptable due to the fact that the evacuees are being funneled towards Russia and its ally Belarus. This is even getting criticism from other presidents in other countries as well, that this is not the way to do it. Now, due to these latest developments, today, President Biden will discuss ongoing efforts with the French President Emmanuel Macron, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. So we'll see what comes of that later on this afternoon. And now for a major worry. This isn't just a worry from economists, okay? This is a worry for many Americans as well, is that stagflation and eventual recession is coming. JP Morgan is already cutting their growth outlook, and they're predicting that a 20% increase to crude oil prices will result in a lower GDP of about 0.3% here in the US and in Canada. They're predicting, I believe it's 0.6% in Europe, okay? They also stated that even though we won't see anything as severe as what we saw in the 1970s, and this was when we had 12% inflation, I believe, in 1974, and we had, I think, 14.5% inflation in 1980. But they do expect we're going to see an increase in inflation, most likely 1 point, which would mean we're currently at 7.5% inflation. We could see 8.5% next month. Actually, that would be in a week, okay? That would actually come out, actually it's not in a week, that comes out on the 10th. That comes out in 3 days. So, not the greatest news, but that's currently what is being said. So, we will see. Now, something big happened today as well. Germany stated they will not be cutting Russian oil. Okay? Their chancellor stated that the Russian oil supply is of essential importance to the European economy. He made it very clear that heating, transport, and electricity cannot be secured any other way. And so that's the issue. And honestly, here in the United States, could we stop buying oil from Russia? Yes, we could. And should we have been doing this years ago? Probably. But at the same time, our allies and our friendships with other countries, right? They're not really there in many cases. So that's our best option, is to get oil from Russia. The other thing is, well, if you stop the Keystone pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline, right? Well, that creates another issue. And I've seen all these charts over the past few weeks that say the gas prices are rising because of Russia and Ukraine. Well, yes, they are, but we've also seen gas prices rise just under the Biden administration in general. And so I'm not saying it's all the Biden administration's fault, but a majority of it is. Okay, that's the other issue, is the Keystone XL pipeline was huge. That was huge. And when you got somebody like Tesla's billionaire owner, Elon Musk, who obviously he wants to see everything go electric, right? When he's calling on Twitter for we need more gas, right? Because you can't just go and start making more electric cars and going all electric just instantly at the flick of a switch. It doesn't happen like that. And so when somebody who's as invested as he is into solar and electric and stuff like that, right? It doesn't make sense why he'd be pushing for gas, right? Oil. Okay? Again, big issues here. But again, we'll see what happens moving forward. We now know that China is warning the United States not to form a Pacific NATO and back Taiwan. And remember, a few weeks ago when the talks of Russia potentially invading Ukraine started, well, we learned that very quickly that China was watching this very closely to see what the response from the US and other NATO allies would be. Well, now they know. And now we're seeing that China actually has a similar approach to that of what Russia and Ukraine. China is saying that if Taiwan becomes part of the Pacific NATO, then it would actually suppress China's growth. That was the worry with Russia, is that if Ukraine became part of NATO, then NATO's one step closer. They're right on the doorstep of Russia, okay, it could potentially hurt Russia, but it also could suppress their growth, okay? Similar statements, so we'll see what happens. Now, something else that took place yesterday, Capitol Police issued an emergency declaration yesterday. Now, 2 days ago was when the People's Convoy ended up making its way into Washington, D.C. The convoy's goal isn't to block off streets. It's not really to do that. Not to the sense like Canada did, where they blocked off a bridge that prevented people from getting it from Canada to the United States. That's not what they want to do. The convoy's goal is to just be a huge pain. That's exactly what the organizers said. Now, the organizers state that the purpose of this is to show what mandates have done, and that those were a huge pain as well. Now, this convoy, they're not going to go and park. That's not their goal, just go and park and block people from getting in and out of streets. That's not their goal. The convoy's goal, and what their plan is to simply drive around the Beltway in a circle. They're going to do this every day, and they will add one additional lap to their trip every single day that they're there. They won't stop until their demands are met. Now, this has already slowed down traffic quite a bit, so workers in the area are actually being told to telework for a little while. But here's the other issue. As gas prices increase, we got this convoy that drove from California to Washington, D.C., and now they're just going to drive around the Beltway. So the issue that some are going to face is gas prices are going up. This convoy is just going to keep driving. Well, eventually it could be very expensive, so eventually the convoy could kind of dissipate. So we'll see. But that's what we know at this time. Again, there's a lot of stuff going on this week. We do have the CPI data that comes out in 3 days on Thursday, March 10th. So that's going to be major. If you are investing into the stock market and you're pouring money in now, just understand, could be risky, could be very volatile this week. If you are a day trader, you probably already know this. Volatility can make or break you. It could be very lucrative this week, but at the same time, it could be very risky. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all latest news and updates. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful start to your week. Have an incredible Monday. Make sure you go ahead, click that like button if you enjoyed today's video. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.